I'm Joe Platia, and welcome to How to Body Paint the Human Canvas. In this video, we're not only going to discuss the basics of body painting, but how to incorporate into mainstream commercial photo styling. At a fashion that runs roughly $3 a bottle, you're only limited to your imagination. Now, people often ask me, Joe, what's the point of body painting? What can you do with it? Well, the question is, what can't you do with it? At $3 a bottle, you can create any fashion you desire with a very limited budget. Now in this video, we're going to discuss base coating, stenciling, highlighting and low lighting, what the camera will see and what the camera won't, and of course, troubleshooting. Now this is an important part of the video because this is what's going to help you overcome some problems you may experience during a photo shoot.
Now the first thing we're going to discuss is stenciling. Stenciling is the most important part of body painting because this is what decides whether or not they look covered in paint or if they're actually wearing clothing because of the crisp lines. You can either buy pre-made stencils or you can cut your own. Now what you see here are some of the common stencils you can buy at hobby shops, craft stores, or even architect supply stores. You can use most anything as a stencil, from lace to fencing to ribbon. And ribbon, by the way, is an excellent way to make parallel lines. Now, if you plan to make your own, go to the nearest hobby shop and ask for acetate film. This is what I prefer to use because it's cost effective and it's durable. Okay. Now, when I'm stenciling the perimeter of the body painting, I use a clear adhesive masking which can also be purchased at most hobby shops on a roll. This adhesive film is also used for book covers, so I don't have to tell you it's quite tacky. Slow removal is very important. You don't want to take the model's skin with it. Now the next thing we're going to discuss are body cosmetics and eyeshadow. Now I prefer to incorporate eyeshadow with my cosmetics or my body paints, simply because I can add a shimmer or a highlight wherever I want and it's easily removed. The paints you can find at most professional makeup stores. Now the next thing we're going to discuss is your airbrush. Your airbrush is basically on your own personal preference. Just make sure you bring lots of water because during a body painting you'll go through multiple occasions of clogging. So be prepared to stop and clean. Now the first thing we're going to begin with are your perimeter stencils. Now, I prefer to cut my stencils approximately 1.5 inches wide. Now I'm using these stencils for strictly the borders of the fashion I'm creating. Now the adhesive film you see here is the adhesive film I had mentioned before about how difficult it is to remove. And be very careful once again when removing this from your model's skin. Take your time. Now when you begin placing your border stencils, or your perimeter stencils, where you'd like them, it's important that both your left and your right leg, and your right and your left arm are even. After placing the film around the perimeter, it's important that you secure the film on the skin, so you don't have any bleeds coming up underneath the film. Now when you're doing body painting, it's important that you're able to improvise. In some situations the stencil may be too long and sometimes too short. Feel free to just add a piece wherever you need it or snip a piece whenever it's necessary. Now once again, you want to make sure your lines are even. No matter what perimeter you're doing, it has to look even. Otherwise, people will instantly know something's wrong. Now when placing your perimeter stencils in the chest area, this is what I refer to as a point of interest. This is where people are going to look to see if they can tell if it's paint or not. It's very important that your stencils are even and consistent. Now your base coat is one of the most important parts of body painting. Now when spraying the base coat or any other color, you always want to shoot away from the stencils and also away from the bare skin. The bare skin can be quite a pest to clean up when you're finished body painting. Once again, it's very important to spray away from the stencils. What can happen is the air pressure can actually blow underneath the stencils and you'll have paint and runs underneath those stencils, and you won't realize they're there till you're finished and it's time to clean up. Now when spraying, it's important that you take your time. Don't spray too much too quick. The time you save in covering it in one coat will be lost in dry time. Should you happen to overspray and you see some runs, simply go in with a cotton swab and just dab them, because those runs will actually shooting lighter tones to medium tone colors. Now when spraying, it's important that you go in even, consistent strokes, whether it be left to right or up and down. It's important that you do the same thing throughout the entire body mural. Those marks will actually show up on boards when shooting colors such as yellows, greens, light blues. Now, unlike my plastic model here, a human being, the body temperature of the skin will naturally dry the skin much quicker. Here, the dry time is much slower and you will see more runs occur, which doesn't happen quite as often on human beings. Now again, make sure you're spraying away from any bare skin, such as the shoulders, the neck area. The overspray will occur one way or another, but try to limit it by simply just taking these slight precautions and just aiming away from those bare areas. Now one problem you may experience is body hair. Body hair can easily be eliminated by simply, after applying the base coat, dusting your model with talcum powder and then brushing off. And it'll actually settle down the hair, so when you put your base color down, you won't notice it. Now you'll notice right away you're barely seeing the white paint being applied. It's because I'm trying to make this as thin a coat as possible, because I intend on making 2 coats to this. Now the purpose for a clean, even base coat is quite simple. Colors are so much more vibrant on pure white than it would be hypothetically on tan. Color on top of color is darker. Your primary color will be applied to the entire stenciled area. Let the paint fly. Don't be afraid to open the airbrush up full throttle and get a nice even coverage with your base coloring, starting with your darkest color. Now a second coat is almost always required when it comes to full coverage areas. So take your time, don't try to cover it in one shot, but just try to get a nice, even coverage. Now, the majority of the overspray will occur during your primary base color application. You want to take your time and make sure you aim away, but one way or another, it's going to get on the bare skin. So just relax and take your time. Now, when painting around the belly button area, it's important to completely fill the belly button. See bare flesh. Cover all areas. Now, as you see here, the stencil has come apart from the skin. It's important to spray down and not upward underneath the stenciling when spraying, because you'll still be able to come crisp line provided you don't spray underneath. Now, when spraying the arms, it's important that you have your model move her arms away from her body, otherwise overspray will occur in the bare areas. Now, in this case, my model obviously cannot move her arms, so I'm spraying away from the bare skin. Now you'll notice I'm just going for a nice, even, consistent coat, up and down strokes, so everything comes out nice and consistent. So when I put on the second coat, very little paint will be required.
You loved me still the same. That you loved me still the same. That you loved me still.
Now you'll notice some more running has occurred, and I instantly want to go in there and clean that up. Those markings will leave a definite line, so go in and just simply blot them with a cotton swab.
I dreamt that suitor sought my hand that night upon bed.
Now, after the first base color coating, it's going to look a little inconsistent, but after the second coat, it'll all come out nice and even. Now you see here, after the second coat, on the left leg, it's completely consistent, no markings, no runs. It's very important to clean up those runs. They will show up.
And I dreamt that one of that noble host came forth my hand to claim. But I also dreamt, which charmed me most, that you loved me still the same. That you loved me still the same, that you